Hey, friends. Welcome to Ask Robin Black. I don't know what episode this would be, but we're going to call it episode 1. I'm also going to let you know we might change the name. So please hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere and tell me what hashtag would make sense. Hashtag Ask Robin Black makes a lot of sense, but we may not use it. In old school media, sometimes when you part from things, you can't always do that. And that's no one to blame. That's just old school people do old school things sometimes. So let me know what you think we should call it. But Ask Robin Black started out as a question and answer thing. You ask things and I figure out and try to answer them and share ideas. But very quickly, it became about the thing that I've been interested in. And that has been how fighting, this has been my curiosity about fighting. It changes as curiosity about all things do as you get more information. And I've become more and more curious about how fighting informs other things in life. How becoming a better fighter could make you a better father. The same tools and tactics and philosophies that you use to improve your ability to kick could improve your ability to be a dad, or improve your ability to run your business, or improve your ability to improve your ability. That's probably the best scenario of all. And so very quickly, Ask Robin Black took questions, and this is how I've been thinking for the last couple of years anyways, and took them over to how we can apply those to life. Bruce Lee, a man here, used to talk about trying to be an artist of life. So you start out, you're a martial artist, and you express your ideas and your creativity through your martial arts, through moving your body, that eventually your life becomes an extension and an expression about your creativity, and you live your life, and the life itself becomes your art. And the longer you study these types of thinking, the more you see that that is a possibility. The reason I'm telling you that right now off the top is because whenever you're watching this, after this today, I'm going to go and interview somebody. And when we started this podcast, I had no desire to be interviewing people, but I met a fascinating character. So we're going to start a segment called Robin Black Artists of Life, where I will talk to interesting people. I'm talking to someone today and someone else Sunday, my friend Stu, who painted this painting. But today we're going to take some questions, maybe 5 or 6 today. I got to tell you, it's been a hectic. When we're shooting this, it is Friday, I believe the 16th, Mark? 16th, 17th. And it was Tuesday night, Wednesday morning when we got up the first, Mark edited and posted the first video on my YouTube channel. I have 2,500 subscribers, by the way. Thank you, every single one of you. That is really crazy and cool in 2 days. I did not expect that. But in that, so it's only been... Wow, this is the day after that. And I haven't been doing the best job. We talk about the things you need to learn and the things that you need to optimize and become efficient and be good at life and good at martial arts and good at learning. And diet, exercise, and sleep are the pillars of that. And I haven't been eating super great because of the speed at which I've been moving. My sleep has been fragmented, and I was at Bang Fitness today, and it got me thinking that there may be a podcast in that too. But Mark Manoharan here, we're just about killing him. I've also got Aaron and Morgan, 2 crazy artists, and they're going to be putting out something that we've done that's very different than podcasting. It'll be on the YouTube page soon. So anyways, I just wanted to update you off the top before we get into some questions and try, as we tend to do with this line of thinking, is to take it somewhere and connect it to something that we know that through the study of the martial arts has made sense. A lot of the questions that I've gotten are building on ideas that we've done before. And by all means, go back to the Fight Network YouTube page and check out its hashtag Ask Robin Black. There's 5 or 6 episodes in there. Those guys are my friends still. And I'm started to be very proud of the work that we did together. And I'm thinking about good times and stuff there now. So we don't need to be mad at those guys. It's very nice that everybody wanted to tell them off, but we don't need to be mad at them. Yeah, so feel free to go back and watch those. Let's get into some questions. So a lot of these are building on those ideas, and there was a note or two that I got from people saying, as more people start to hear these ideas, the questions will become similar. And I don't think that's true. No, I do believe that's true, but the answers will not be similar. We're not limited that, well, here's our ideas and we're done. Ideas don't work that way. What we're trying to do is go deeper and deeper, peel back more layers. The things that we learn inform us with many new questions, which require study and research and reading and thought experiments to go. And so, yes, some of these questions will become focused, but all that's going to do is focus us to go even further in some of these ideas. So the question, the fluidity and similarity of the questions are a good thing, because they force you to go deeper. And there have been people now with 5 or 6 of these getting that vibe where we're vibing together that, you can find answers to most things through the study of the martial arts. So a lot of these questions are really building on ideas that we've done before. Mark may or may not put these questions on the screen somewhere here or here this week, but that's something we're going to be doing very quickly. And they might be. It could be right here. I don't know. So let's start with Hamed _A15RS. I have bad vision, so if I got that wrong, Hamed, I'm sorry. How can learning and training MMA change the way a person sees life with its ups and downs? I'm only going to get to 5 or 6 today, so I'm going to combine that question and we're going to riff on it with the Akasambo, who's been just a brilliant supporter of my work, always at Fight Network and of this show, and I appreciate you, man. Do you think fighting, in brackets, constant problem solving, struggles, lows and highs, is a condensed version of life itself? Dude, you keep taking these questions further. So let's picture that before we look for answers. Let's just clarify what we're talking about. In a fight, or in a conflict, a martial arts contest, or fighting for your life, or fighting for anything, you don't just win or lose. And when you first go in to fight, somehow your brain doesn't understand that. And I had some very bad performances, and even someone as great as, say, Donald Cerrone at the UFC level has had this kind of performance where he can't, and I'm not speaking for him, there's something Greg told me, and I think he has talked about before. He's a brilliant fighter, and I'm a huge fan. I've made jokes about always picking the other guy, but I am an immense fan of Donald Cerrone as a fighter and as an artist of life. This guy's writing the life that he wants. When you look at Donald, you're not just looking at how he kicks and punches. The guy is literally writing the life he wants, the way he wants it, living adventures the way he wants. But he has even touched on this idea that somehow in a fight, it's like, I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose. And it's not that. This is not a binary thing. It's a path, just like life is. It's a path. And on every path, there are choices. And every choice leads you to a new path. And when you make the choice to go down that path, there's an entire universe that could have happened that is now gone. You've started this path. There are ways to circle back, but you're on a path. You choose every single day where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And again, on fightnetwork.com or on the Fight Network's old YouTube page, I've got a breakdown that I did of the going into the second TJ Dillashaw versus Renan Barão fight, watching it in reverse, starting with round 5, then round 4, then round 3, then round 2, then round 1, showing the one moment where something changed and how that set up. It was just an incredible fun thing to do, making that breakdown. I learned so much doing that, and it changed my perspective, and it was a really wild experience. But in the process of doing that, I had built it the regular way for a week or two. And then it wasn't quite getting there. Like I could explain how the punch landed and that changed this thing and how he set it up and what he did to create Barão believing that it wasn't as dangerous to be where he was as it was. All of that I could explain. But then the payoff was at the beginning. Somehow it didn't work. And then suddenly, I don't know how, it just hit me. And it hit me to feel it backwards. And then I remembered the movie Memento. So first I thought of somehow reversing it. And then sometimes you take inspiration from other people's art. And Memento, that movie, that director who's done all kinds of other stuff, The City Upside Down, Inception, all that kind of stuff, that thing about time and outer space, Interstellar. I forget the artist's name. Do you know? Christopher Nolan. Thank you. Mark has many talents. So Christopher Nolan, somewhere in there, I saw that he'd actually, Memento was never intended to be backwards, but that the taking that movie and reversing the scenes created the feeling in us of having no memory. Think of how fucking smart that guy is. Think of that. That movie was a movie, just a regular old movie. But to be willing to take such a huge risk taking, if that movie was a flop or nobody got it or whatever, but there's great art is made that way. And great art inspires other lesser artists, the rest of us. And so somewhere in there, once I had the idea of doing it, and so I made a little nod to it at the beginning, I said, yeah, and this is about, do you remember the character in there, that he kept referencing? My friend Sammy something, my good friend Sammy, he loves belts. It's a nice memento. So I gave it a little nod, because I got inspiration from that movie. And then I told it backwards. But in doing so, I started walking through the world that week, thinking about because the turning point of that fight and Barrow's belief was when that shot, and his team's belief, when that shot hit, it damaged him to a point that it was he just survived for 4 more rounds. And he believed that next time it would be different, that it was that moment in that fight that would tell the story. And they trained as if that was true. I don't have to change anything. If that punch doesn't land, I'll kill this guy. Well, that punch, although that was the fork in the road, that was a fork in the road. That road was going to be a bad road for Barrow anyway. And he got, of course, the second fight turned out, no, it wasn't one punch. But in trying to lay that together, and I started thinking that way, I would go and I would get to the corner of a street and I would look and think, if I stand here 10 more seconds, every moment of my day is different right now. And I'd be walking to the store and I would just think, if I get that food, that will start a brand new sort of direction of time in my life, because it'll take 6 minutes. If this takes 6 minutes, but getting that food only took 3, I walked out into the world 3 minutes earlier and every step of the world in front of me was different. Every moment of everything was different. And once you start thinking about that, you realize if I take one more question here, I've changed reality for the rest of my life. By not getting up from this chair and then Mark and I getting in an Uber and going to do that interview later, we do it 15 minutes later. Every single person moving through the world and every single thing moving through the world is now a different path for me. Think about that. It can blow your mind. And although I have not smoked marijuana today, I understand, if you have, I may have just damaged you here. But so now, once you start thinking of life that way, that every choice leads to another choice, there are no, and sure, you get hit by a car because you didn't get that sandwich. Instead, you got, the roast beef and you left 2 minutes earlier and you got hit by that car. But at the same time, the next step is the next step. Things don't all have to be so dramatic. And fighting will teach you that. Somebody is and I touched on this because it's the thing I come back to so often. It's one of the root lines of thinking. You're mounted and somebody's punching you. Well, you're mounted and someone's punching you. Your job now is still the same job. Just because it's become scarier or more, intimidating, or you've got a longer path to get back on top or whatever, it's still just the job of the job. You just have to lock up his arms, get back to half guard, reverse him in some way, pop him up and go for a heel hook. You have many options. Each of them results in its own universe exactly the same way. If I attack the heel hook, he responds different. It's an entirely different scenario. And fighting is that. And so is everything. Everything is that. So, and the lessons of the fight, there are so many. I mean, in every way. So the way that choices lead you, the fact that if I panic when I'm mounted, I will not be able to do the one thing that was the path out. So I have to learn not to panic. There's 1,000 lessons in life. And the way the Akasambo put it, constant problem solving. Okay. Every single positional choice, every movement that you have in a fight is problem solving. And it was one of the things that Mark and I talked about when we first decided to do this, is there are big problems, which are often just broken down into small problems. So I'm mounted and I'm being punched in the face. That is a big problem. And if I address it as a big problem, I'm screwed and the fight is over. But if we break it into small problems, priority 1, I got to stop him from punching me in the face. Now, I can do that by wrapping up his arms, breaking down his posture. There's a lot of different ways I can do that. If I do step 1, problem number 2 might be switch my hip or put both hands in one hip. Get the hip out. Each of these are small assignments. And if we focus on the small assignment, it works. Sometimes we take a huge risk. Instead of step 1, lock up his arms, step 2, push on one hip, step 3, move to the side, pop him up, run. All of these options, we choose a big option. And sometimes we panic that way. And we panic and go, I got to sweep him and get the mount. Or I got to sweep him and end up in his guard. And in doing so, we don't address the little problems. So all of this problem solving, figuring out how to lay it out, assessing things, diagnosing what the issue is. If you learn it, whether it's in fighting or snow removal or cooking or pet grooming, it's all applicable to your life. If you look at how you fight or groom your pet or whatever as just that thing, then you've only learned a thing. But if you look at it as how is that thing just a system which can be incorporated always, you can apply it to everything. The lessons to be learned from having a fight or training or chasing a goal is applicable to this little business in my living room right here. And it's applicable to whatever it is you're doing. And it's applicable to that conflict you have with your boss. And it's applicable to the fact that you want to get a little bit stronger, but you don't go to the gym. So fucking go to the gym. Now you go to the gym and it's scary. So overcome that fear. And then you've overcome that fear, and now you have to learn that technique. So learn that technique. Then you've learned that technique, and now you just have to put in the work. And you put in the work. While you're putting in the work, you get better at the thing. All of this is just, it's sitting there waiting to be figured out. But it's done through it's done through study, and it's done through sharing, and it's done because some guy that you listen to throws an idea in your head, or any of 50 other people that you meet in the day throw ideas in your head. But it's done a little at a time. Everybody who's done anything did it through small, tiny, incremental improvements. And that's what we're doing. And that's why we're answering questions today. But this other thing that we're doing, where I'm documenting my path from white belt to black belt, is exactly the same thing. This is just, we're in my living room, and by the end of next week, I might be in the studio. You don't know. So all of it, we could just take this one question and explore it. And we could come back in 5 days, and I'll do some reading, and I'll absorb some other ideas, and I'll take some. Bruce has, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of small concepts in here. Any one, you can read them all, or you can read 1 or 2 of them and think about them. And it's not a Bible, and it's not a religion, and I'm not, there are many smart people out in the world. Some of them are making podcasts and TV shows and websites today. And some of them are historical figures, and they all have insight into how to do stuff. And I know I mentioned it. I'm going later on today. We're starting a kind of chat or interview thing. I think we're calling it Artists of Life. And I'm going to get together with a friend of mine named Rick that I've only known for a few days, but he's one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. And he lives his life entirely. He's very successful in millions of areas of his life, financially, business, creatively, all kinds of things. But he breaks all the rules. He breaks them all, which means, are they even really rules? But we'll get to that. If you haven't seen that, or whenever you're watching this, watch for that. I think I'm fascinated to talk to Rick today. So thanks, Hamed and the Akasambo. Thank you. And I will take a second to thank everybody that's been digging the stuff. It's been a real pleasure. I'm tired and I'm shook a little, and we are overloaded. But there are people sending us art and music, and there's people sharing everything. And there's people, the amount of encouragement is really wild. I did not expect that. Brendan Schaub said some very nice things the other day. I still have to call Brendan. He was even talking about hosting this on Fighter and the Kid, and there aren't many places I'd even consider it. Joe and Brendan are 2 of the only ones I can think of. But so I got to call him later. But shit is happening fast, and this is how people like that live. Brendan will be a text, and we got to talk later. And then 18 hours will go by, and he's built half a kingdom in that time. And so have we. Little tiny kingdom. Okay, so a couple more. I'm sorry that we're going to be short today, but we've got that other podcast to do. And but there are challenges. So we're talking about, how you learn from fighting. There are challenges. It turns out we've got to fight somebody who's way better than us at something, or something changes in our life. Suddenly Conor McGregor has a baby. His whole life has changed now. The guy who was training, thinking, focused a certain way, now it has changed his life. And you must understand that there are constant changes. So I am, for example, all of the time that we've spent in the last 3 days, only a week ago, all of that time I would have spent studying fighting and studying how fighting is relevant. All of it. Hyper focus. That was the great gift and one of the great things that I traded what I gave to the team over at Fight Network. And one of the things they gave me back, in addition to employing me, was giving me the chance to do nothing but focus on that. Now we're figuring out how Patreon works. Thank you for sponsoring us to the people who have. It's been very kind, and it means a lot. And we're going to get you custom content, which I just said another thing now. Custom content. Okay, how are we going to do that? And social media and YouTube, all these kinds of things. And I got a team: Aaron, Morgan, Mark Andre in Winnipeg, Mark. So we're like a little garage band, but it requires focus. And so my concern now is I must optimize my life in such a way that we can do those kinds of things without it infringing on my ability to study fighting and the martial arts with the same intensity. So maybe I have to understand that my focus will have to change in some way, or I have to shut off social media for 6 hours at a time, despite the fact that I want to thank everybody, or something. There are always answers, but you have to identify the potential challenge. You have to identify the potential challenge, what the problem is. Holy shit, Crow Cop's head kick. That's a problem, right? We're fighting Crow Cop. We know that head kick is a problem. We're going to prepare for that. We're going to prepare everything. We're going to prepare for the realities of the danger of that. We're going to prepare for our reaction to the danger of that, because we can't overreact to that danger, but we can't underreact to that danger. So what does that mean? Do I understand myself and how I view Crow Cop's kick? You're going to go into all those layers. So it's something we have to do, and I'm going to share it with you because we're learning, and I'm hoping that my failures and my challenges are interesting and maybe help you and give you some ideas. And if they do, give them back to me, because I think we can kind of make a little hive mind here with some of these examinations of philosophy. Okay, Zach Makovsky. I love you, man. And there's been a lot of fighters and people that have sent stuff. Zach sent a question for Ask Robin Black. I believe Zach just signed with ACB out of Russia. Congratulations, dude. Great organization. I literally got off a Skype phone call with Anton at ACB. And next week I will be breaking down some of their fights, either here or if we have some other environment that we might do it in, I'm going to break down a bunch of their fights for them. And we're planning for me to go to Moscow for April 15th for their show in Moscow. So I'm going to break down some of the fights from that card, and I'm going to meet the team and talk to them about what I can contribute. Frank Mir's killing it with commentary. Maybe there's a breakdown analysis, other type of role, because I want to, they've very graciously said they want me to be part of their team, and I do want to be part of their team too. Zach is fighting there. Zach, if you could match make any fight in MMA right now, who would it be? FYI, I'd pick McGregor Wonderboy. I said a couple of years ago, and this was before I'd ever met Zach, I said that I thought he was the guy who had the potential skills to be able to have a real fight with Demetrius Johnson. I said that years back, before we ever met, because I was, and oh, you lost a fight, or this fighter's on a 2-fight losing streak, or you got knocked out by whatever the thing is, people will often be like, so you're wrong. Those things are not connected. The skill and ability and ability to perform and potential that a fighter has is absolutely not dictated or measured by the results of their performances. So when you, and plus, who did he just fought? That stud from Duke's camp, Ortiz, back in Toronto. And I mean, those were honestly 2 of the 5 best flyweights in the world. And one of them was actually going to be cut because that's the nature of fighting. But if Dustin Ortiz became the champion in 8 months somehow, would you be like, oh, Makovsky, yeah, he sucks. Like, just, it's something we have to understand, that results do not dictate the talent and the skill. And Zach has that because one of the things that he works very closely with Faraz, and Faraz has a team of young killers, including Eamon, who are understanding sort of the three dimensions of fighting out in space very, very well, and taking that understanding to another level. And Zach's also mixes it up really well and has the sort of threat everywhere that you need to be able to do something with Demetrius. Listen, don't get me wrong. I don't think anyone's going to beat Demetrius Johnson right now. I think he's the best fighter in the world. But Zach's somebody with the raw materials, the training, and if he has the right performance, that I truly believe that. I said it years ago. I still believe it today. So why would he pick McGregor first? First of all, the answer to that, I don't know, because it'll change in 10 minutes. I want to see every single fight in the world. Every single combination of the skills, the mindset, the ability, the physiology, the tactics, everyone. And I want to see them all multiple times. I want to see what happens when they fight, and then lessons are learned, changes happen, one grows more than the other. I want to see all of that. It's what we're documenting here. It's what we're doing here. It's what we're going to be doing here no matter what, always, until I die. So I want to see them all. So Zach, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you, my man. But I will talk about your answer. McGregor and Wonder Boy. Now, I just mentioned that Zach, Eamon, Louis, and Mandel Nallo. Mandel and Louis will probably be in the UFC, I'd say, it depends how they want to progress, and they trust their coach implicitly. 18 months, maybe 6 months, who knows? They're ready. They all play a game of playing with and manipulating movement forward and backward, the relationship between each other's hips, chest, feet, head, and weapons in space in conjunction. Where's my hand? In conjunction to your chin. Where's my knee? In conjunction to that. If I step out here, what happens? That relationship of all of these anchors of position in your body with the relationship of all the targets and all the weapons of somebody else, that sounds natural. It sounds like that's what fighting is. I'm just explaining something simple, and it is. But you develop a sensitivity to it. You develop a sensitivity to where the dangers are. And it becomes, for a lot of these guys at this level, the way I'm watching it, they are combining senses. And there are other senses. We're going to talk about this another time. There are other senses outside of the ones we're familiar with. There's senses of vibration, and there's senses of range. The human body has many other senses. We'll talk about that another day. They start to develop them in tandem. So just because you can't feel with your hip how close that TV is to you doesn't mean that Zach can't. He can. And so can Wonder Boy, and so can Conor McGregor. And Conor McGregor has developed that sensitivity on that incredibly high level. And for Wonder Boy, one movement, he's able to play with where you are. And that's why Woodley did so little. I think Woodley won that fight. I think Woodley is a great champion. I think Woodley mastered the challenge. And I am a huge fan of Tyron Woodley. I also got to mention, I met his mother, and she was just the sweetest woman I've ever met. I mean, just 32 grandkids. And she comes up to me and she goes, "You always give my son a real fair shake, and I appreciate that." And I was looking at her going, I don't think in terms of trying to impress fighters or their mothers, but I'm so glad that in this particular case, because look at this sweet woman. She was such a sweet lady. But so Wonder Boy has done it to a point where he also, and I know I get into some mystical shit, and when people will, if you will look at it and you don't spend the amount of time becoming sensitive to it, you can dismiss it, and that's fine, by all means, do it, dismiss it. Well, I'll tell you, when people who study art or study wine are telling you the notes and scents and flavors in there, just because you don't taste them doesn't mean these wine guys are full of shit. And I'm not saying that I know everything I'm talking about, but I'm expressing with you the things, what I have found through the study of it. And it's real. What do you think is happening when Wonder Boy makes one movement and you overreact, underreact, or freeze? He's been doing that his entire life. And I talked to him and his father a lot, just down in Vegas at 209. And they can't even necessarily always explain exactly what's going on, because a lot of baseball players can't tell you why they can hit a ball and you can't. But there's a reason. And whether it's a scientist or somebody who understands physics, or somebody who understands the human eye, or how the eye is related to the human mind. They can tell you how and why they hit that ball and you can't. I'm searching for the ways to explain, not just Stephen Thompson has a great sense of range management. That's cool. But I'm trying to find what is really happening and how his senses, his sensitivity, his ability to gauge and measure and react and process at hyper fast speeds, what that means, how he chunks. Chunking is a way of being able to see many, many things and categorize them. Mark, can you hand me that book? It's by the blue thing that I got at the Pan Am Games, that jug. It's right there. Yeah. So I'm working on this book, and this isn't the be all end all. Nothing is. It's not like we're gonna have giant breakthroughs that are meaningful and everything. I used to be really into trying to categorize things. You go back to McGregor when I first called it. I broke it down before Dana brought me in to do breakdowns for the UFC. And I was like, what he does is distance management. I used to want to categorize everything, put hashtags on it. And when we get back to doing breakdowns, which hopefully will be within weeks or very short months, because a lot of resources needed to do that. Editors and screens and cameras and setups and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we will do some of that again, because as a tool to be able to grow the understanding of fighting to an audience that only watches a few fights a month, some of those tools are very valuable. But now we're looking to really, let's find the truth. Our explanation of something doesn't end and therefore we know everything forever. We must study deeper and find the truth. Zach, I'm sorry, man. I've just got way off on attention, but that's what we do here. And so Connor and Stephen are among the best ever at that sensitivity and manipulation of each other in space. And I will tell you that a lot of people would find that fight boring. And I think Zach knows that too. And we'll have a whole other conversation about boring another day, because it ain't boring. And neither was Wonderboy versus Tyron Woodley. It was fascinating. I'll tell you, Zach was fascinated. I'll tell you that Conor McGregor was fascinated by that fight. I'll tell you, Greg Jackson was fascinated. Demetrius Johnson was fascinated. They are, just because there is intense layers of subtlety does not mean it's not amazing. If you do not pay attention to that subtlety, if you watch a chess match, people playing chess, not only people who play chess or like chess or understand the strategies are even going to watch that. You put that on TV, people are like, what? White knight to, white queen to 3, whatever. Nobody's going to care. But if you start to study it and you see the tactic and you see that one pawn moving, like, oh shit. Oh no, he's trying that. You'll get into it, right? And it's like that. I'm not saying that you can't not be entertained. You can not be entertained all you want, and you can, by all means, you can't say you cannot. Actually, you can do whatever you want. Sorry. It's unfair to say that fight sucked or that fight was boring. You could say like I said, say whatever you want. I'm trying to get out of the habit of saying you can't or you shouldn't or don't. Say whatever you want. Say anything you like. But it is unfair to say that that fight sucks or that fight was boring. You could say, I was bored by that fight, because you were. You were bored. You looked at it. You didn't like it. That didn't do anything for you. Like, God, why don't they do anything? All I'm saying is they were doing lots. There was a lot going on there. And that's what you'd see with Wonderboy and McGregor, among other things. There's a lot of layers to that. We've already been talking 30 minutes, and we could talk 20 more on that. But I really do enjoy doing these. I really do enjoy having somebody's idea, throw them, like lob me a ball and I'll try to swing as hard as I can or lightly or whatever to hit it. And Zach, I really appreciate you, man. And I appreciate Cub and Jorge Masvidal and all these guys. There have been a lot of fighters reaching out to me, and I appreciate everybody, but that was something I wouldn't have expected, and it's quite amazing. So a couple more. And at MMA_today, MMA Today, thanks guys. Is there a point in a fighter's career where they can't evolve anymore? So kind of an old dog, new tricks question. Yeah, that's really interesting. The truth of the matter is no. No. Um, there's never a point at which any of us have to stop evolving. In fact, you should evolve, learn, grow, strive, improve, change in everything forever. So there is no point at which you can't evolve, ever. Is there a point where many stop evolving? Yes, because it gets harder to do. It gets harder, it's more draining. And over time, that hungry kid who spent 25 hours in the gym is an older guy whose body will only let him spend 15. Hopefully, he gets more out of the 15 than he got out of the 25 because of the other things that he's learned. Problem is now there's another 18-year-old who can get that amount because that knowledge is out there and is being taught at a higher level, and he can spend 25. So BJ Yair becomes, what took BJ a lifetime to achieve. I know it is scary. 20-year-olds can achieve now. Coaching is these guys used to have to travel somewhere because they heard there was a purple belt 400 miles away that they could train with that might have one thing they could learn. And they all traveled around sharing it. It took a lifetime to figure out, guard and half guard and mount and how to throw a 2-3 and all of these things, overhand right to double leg takedown. This took some people a decade. You'll learn that at 14 years old at your local MMA gym. You'll learn it well. And the teaching of it and the knowledge of it has been so refined that you are still evolving. BJ evolved. And I'm using BJ as an example because of my love and admiration for BJ Penn. BJ evolved. Matt Hughes, is he fighting for Bellator? There's a rumor. Yeah, there's a rumor Matt Hughes wants to fight for Bellator. Matt Hughes could be better than Matt Hughes was. He'll be a little slower. He won't be as physical, but he could be smarter. He'd probably be better. He knows a hell of a lot more about fighting than he did then. A lot more. But he's not going to be the best. Matt Hughes ever will not beat Kelvin Gastelum. There's no way. The best Matt Hughes as the UFC champion will not beat Kelvin Gastelum. Now, Matt Hughes will become smarter as he gets older. He will think differently. He will learn things. He'll adapt to things. He'll understand fighting in a way he never understood it before. His body will slow down. So you will still keep evolving. But now what's happening? I'm making these improvements. I'm smarter. My brain works better. I have a better understanding of things. I use energy better. I'm so much more knowledgeable. And meanwhile, I'm slower and I'm weaker. And where are you meeting? When all of a sudden you're kind of staying the same. Your overall net gains might be none or a little. And then Kelvin Gastelum is like going like this. You know what I mean? So you have to, again, you don't have to do anything. Please forgive me. I'm working on that. I wish you would. I feel like I wish you had to evolve for the rest of your life. I'd like you to evolve for the rest of your life. I'd like you to. No, you do have to. Fuck that. You have to. You have to. That's the one have to. It's not okay to get just older and fatter and dumber and slower and more opinionated. And it's not okay. It's not okay. So I'm going to put my foot down on that one. You have to. You have to evolve every day, always. You have to. I'm sorry to make rules. But you have to. It's what we're doing here. It's what your fucking purpose is on earth. That's what you do. That's why you're here. Fucking go learn something. Do something. Just please do that. And if you do, I'm 47, man. I'm going to get old soon. And so I'm going to get slower and I'm going to get weaker and I'm going to get balder. I've lost some hair. I was gaining a belly, but I haven't been eating very well since the whole change. But don't worry, I'll take care of myself. It's a priority. But I'm going to get slower and weaker and less energy to do all these things. So I'm not just going to accept that. I'm going to learn other things to offset that. So that because if I have a kid, my wife's 30, if I have a kid, I'm going to be 49. When they're 20, I'm going to be 69. I'm not just going to accept that I'm old. So you don't have to. There are certain physical realities and challenges that you'll have, but you can learn something else. You can grow in other ways. So do it. Sorry to rant. Okay. I think, so there's a natural progression. I've just literally just scrolled these down. Like it's just sort of, I don't even, this is where we're at currently. It's all happening very fast. If there is anybody out there, so if you pass around or you send me questions, put in the hashtag #AskRobinBlack. If we do change that, we'll let you know. And then include @MarkIsOnTheAir. That's Mark Manoharan, and he's going to help sift through these. But also going into it, if you are somebody who's following us a lot, I might ask for your help and say, hey, can you assemble all the hashtag questions and DM me them? And I don't need 50 of you to do it. And I know by asking, there's so many generous people that you might, but we're moving real fast here, and that's okay. It's okay. So yeah, we're just scrolled down. But there was a natural progression from old dog, new tricks, and not accepting that although there's physical realities as we degrade, that there are spiritual, mental, psychological, technical, skill improvements that we can make forever that should allow us to continue to evolve. There's a natural thing here, and that Rory_Gillian, @Rory_Gillian, or it could be Gilliam. I apologize, either way. Who's the best heavyweight fighter in history? Now, there's often things that we like and people that we cheer for. Who's the best analyst in history? Oh, damn it, it's Robin Black. No, it's Dominic Cruz. No, it's Steve from Metro. So we make choices and we say they are a certain way. And when we do that, evidence or expertise, sometimes we don't want it. So forgive me if to you the favorite heavyweight fighter ever is Andrei Arlovsky in his prime, or Tim Sylvia, and someone does think Tim Sylvia, and Tim Sylvia had some great moments in fighting. So don't get on Tim Sylvia, or Fedor, obviously, or so if that's the guy you love. And what I'm going to say undermines that, I do apologize. I'm just going with what I have from expertise and study and what I've learned. But the very best heavyweight fighter ever is whoever the best heavyweight fighter right now is, and that can carry over to every single division. I know that Sakuraba could be your favorite fighter ever, or BJ in his prime was your favorite, but the best fighters ever are the best fighters right now. And I'm pretty sure we can say that, and that if we had somebody who's dedicated their life to basketball, they'll tell you the same thing. Somebody who's dedicated their life to music will tell you the same thing. To like skill of playing music, playing piano, rock climbing, anything. Now, there are certain crafts that start to go over time. Technology and other things will cause that. We may not have the best, pure artistic carpenters that we've ever had. We may, I don't know. But if most of the world is making prefab certain things, some of that may degrade. But for the most part, we are better as a species at almost everything that we do, with the exception of the things that start to fade or mutate for some reason. Because there's a definite argument that music's never been worse. That doesn't mean the ability to play music has never been worse, because the ability, the tools, the skills. But as most people start playing on electronic equipment, they're the best at that ever. May not be the best human drummers ever. So things change these things, but for the most part, when it comes to things that we require training and skill development that are still being practiced today, we're the best that we've ever been. The coaches know more than I'm going back to fighting. The coaches know more than they've ever been, and the techniques and tactics to teach is better than it's ever been. We know more about how to train the body and adapt the body and nutrition and et cetera, et cetera. We have people with the ability to, at 4 years old, to already start seeing something at the highest level ever, that by 16, they understand it in a way that nobody's ever understood it. We have a better understanding of performance than we've ever had. One of the first things I talked to my man, Joe, thanks for everything, man. I love you, man. when I was on Joe's show, one of the very first things on the flight over, I was reading this book called The Rise of Superman. I talked to Joe about that a couple of years ago. Some people still include it in a little thing and say, hey, I got it. It's a great book. But that man studied the ability to stay in the state of optimum performance. And so things are being shattered. And I'm creating these numbers using what he had said and his comparisons. So don't quote my numbers. Let's say somebody could free climb for 2 hours, and suddenly in a few year period, because people were getting better at the art of performance, they could free climb for 12. Somebody could free dive for 7 minutes. All of a sudden they can do 14 minutes. And this is like almost exponential growth. And so performance, understanding of the physical, the mental, the technical, the training, the knowledge, the training systems better than they've ever been. That level of competition is better than it's ever been. The best fighters in human history are right now. So there's an argument that Stipe Miocic is the best heavyweight of all time. Now, the reason that is unfair to say is because there's some heavyweight right now who can beat him. Sorry, Stipe. Maybe there isn't. I'm going to go see him. I think it's in Texas, 212 maybe. And we're going to try to get down for that. But currently, there's an argument that he's the best ever. And when you're beating Verdum, and now we're going to go away from technique, skill, today, evolution, and just go to the old school way that people try to, or used to talk about fighting. Verdum beat Fedor, and Verdum beat Kane, and Verdum, etc., and then Stipe beat Verdum. And Stipe beat Arlovsky, a former champion, and then Stipe beat Overeem. And so you can use those metrics and those things to talk about those. By all means, use them if you like. What I'm talking about is just the ability to fight. In human history, no heavyweight has ever fought better than the top 2 or 3 heavyweights right now. So Stipe Miocic is the best heavyweight of all time. By all means, disagree with me, and I'd love to talk to you about why. I think we're just about done, and it's been fun, and I value and cherish the chance to be able to have these conversations. I really do. I really do. And these were the things that when I was like, oh my God, I don't have did I mention this? No. Oh yeah. So you handed me this, and I got off on a tangent. So there's no one answer, and there's no giant breakthroughs. And I used to think that, and I'm sure that maybe I'll think that again, but we're not breaking ground on anything. We're answering questions. We're following our curiosity, and we're trying to make more open artistic knowledge out there instead of categories. I was very categorical in my study and my presentation with the breakdowns years back, but now I want it to be a more open-ended, where any conversation can open up your conversation rather than this is how it is. And any idea can get you thinking about things by examining them. And that's where I'm hoping to go. But so one of the things that we were just talking about was, and this was just on the table, I just asked Mark to grab it because it was sitting there. We were talking about the processes that are happening in the mind when you're fighting. And so they're like algorithms, right? And so I'm doing some study on how algorithms work in machines, in companies, in computer science and stuff. And we're not just going to jump and say, oh, look, we just learned something about computer science, let's just force it on fighting. We're not. We're gonna mull it around a little bit and not try to make some giant thesis. We're just going to use it to learn something. And how Dominic Cruz's mind is actually working. And he's very brilliant, obviously. He can tell you, but he only has his mind. He doesn't have other minds. So he doesn't know the difference. He does know he's capable of what he's capable of, but he can't compare. Well, actually he can, but he's very first person. He has incredible self-awareness, actually. It's really wild. He's somebody just studying himself. Fascinating. But anyways, yeah, so this is on our reading, and there's been some very interesting things in this. I've referenced it on another show, and it sat while we traveled, and now we're getting back to it. But anyways, how do you be grateful while working to achieve big goals at the same time? That's a nice one to go out on. How do you be grateful? Holly underscore 1998. How do you be grateful while working to achieve big goals at the same time? I don't think those things are mutually exclusive in any way. I think they're actually very connected. I mean, you should be grateful all the time. I mentioned I'm going to talk to a successful person today who breaks all the rules. So I'm going to ask him about this too. But among the things you will see from many people whose lives are happy, I'm not just talking about millionaires or star athletes, people with happy lives, is whether they take a moment in the morning, whether they meditate, whether they talk about it, whether they have an environment of their own, some type of thing like this, or whether they keep a gratefulness journal. They make a note of what they have to be grateful for. Ungratefulness is at the root of a lot of unhappiness. Can you imagine? I have a 2-bedroom apartment. I've lived here for 8 years. I was hoping to buy a house one day. I don't know how long of a delay that will be now because of the changes in my life, but I paused to just love my place. And if you lived in a hut or on the street or in a war zone or something, this would be the greatest place you'd ever been. In fact, 99.9999999% of all humans in human history have never lived as nice as I live right here. Do you know what I mean? And that's the truth. Just because we see something on TV about a guy with a mansion, he is 1 in 100 billion or more once you take all of the humans that have ever lived. Almost no one in human history has ever lived with the comfort that I have here. And that's true of every single one of you. If you have a phone where or a laptop or whatever, and you're watching this right now, you're living a better life than almost close to 100% of all humans who have ever lived. You know? And never mind if you're lucky enough to have something fun that you like. If you have a hobby, or if you like food, or you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you're married, or you have a child, like you live better than 100. You're such a minuscule dot from 100% of all humans who have ever lived. You know, and it doesn't really take much to pause and be grateful for that. To just stop and sit down and fucking think about that. A lot of misery is based around the fact that you mistakenly misunderstand that your life is better than 100% or this much from 100% of all humans who have ever lived. You know? Like if you got that, you wouldn't be unhappy. You know what I'm saying? And the only difference between getting that, thus not being unhappy, and not getting that is pausing to look at that and get it. See, that's real. Never mind all the other good shit you got going on in your life. You know? So you stop and you pause. And it doesn't matter. You can dream of big things. And well, I'm sure this will be a conversation we'll get into another day about objects don't make you happy. This zebra I bought for $20 from my wife for Christmas. She hates it. But I really like him. He's goofy. And I've got some things here, but it's not the things that make you happy. And so we have this mistaken idea that happiness is associated to things, when it is 100% certain that a bigger house will not ever make you happy. It'll make you happy in a very little blip, then it'll be gone. And then more things will not make you happy, and a car, and none of that will make you happy. Happiness is not connected to any of that. So you can dream big things, whether that's happiness, or whether that is adventure, or family, or some type of artistic accomplishment that you care about, or enlightenment, or any of these things you can, and you should also be grateful. There's, you know, like they don't relate, you know? How tall is this and how wide is that? How can you have both? Well, they're not connected. So you can strive for big things and adventures and stuff and still realize you're luckier than 100, this much from 100% of all humans ever. So be grateful. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all you guys. I'm grateful for a chance to get to do this. And I'm grateful for everybody that's like encouraging us And I'm grateful for Mark, and I'm grateful for Aaron, and I'm grateful for Morgan and my YouTube page. And I'm grateful to be able to sit here and talk with you guys. And yeah, this has been pretty great. It's been a crazy week. I think we got better sound already, and we're going off into the world to go interview a fascinating person. So I'm grateful for all of it. I'm grateful for you guys a lot. Send me your questions. Hashtag Ask Robin Black. Include Mark is on the air. Mark is on the air. Mark is on the air. Follow him, but don't drive him crazy. He doesn't really use Twitter enough. We're learning everything. We're white belts still. But thank you. And I'll see you guys again. Hoping to do one of these a week. Blackout.